Hello, welcome to Laura's View in Tarot 2. This is my introduction to tarot video. Thank you for joining me. Okay, so I promised to do some very basic tarot instruction. This isn't by no means going to be a comprehensive course, if you can call it that. But I do intend to give you the basics and maybe raise your comfort level on using tarot cards a little bit if you're still curious. I'll point you towards some excellent people that have some instruction, tarot instruction, and but this will be free and no charge to you, and you can see if you want to go further with it. And my goal is at the end of these videos, whether they end up being 2 or 3, there probably won't be more than that, that you'll be comfortable doing simple card reading of your own. And the more you do, the more your comfort level will grow with it. So tonight, for the first time, I'd like to introduce the cards that I'll be using and the ones I recommend that you use too. There are many types of tarot decks out there. I use some version of the Rider-Waite Tarot cards always. I like the energy involved with them. I know there's other types of decks out there, but I'll be instructing with the Rider-Waite, and if you watch me over time, you'll notice that's all I use. It's kind of considered the gold standard for beginning tarot and even beyond beginning. So don't ever be embarrassed because you're using Rider-Waite. It's fabulous. Okay. So if you have another type of deck available to you, you may want to hold off on taking this course until you're also using a Rider-Waite deck, because then it'll have more relevance to you. No matter which tarot deck you're using, the standard is for them to have 78 cards in them. Those include the 22 major arcanas and then the 4 suits. The suits are Pentacles, Swords, Cups, and Wands. Now, of those 4 suits, Wands are going to indicate events, and as far as the basic elements in existence, they're your fire element. Cups are going to indicate emotions, and for elements, it's water, which makes sense. You know, it's a container that holds liquids. Swords are going to be your element of, air. And then as far as what they indicate as in readings, they'll usually involve spoken and written words. Pentacles are your earth sign, earth element, and they're usually going to indicate very practical matters of real estate, money, finance, things like that. When you have major arcanas that show up in a reading, they have more clout than the minor arcanas. If a major arcana comes up as a near future possibility, it's pretty well going to happen. There's not much you can do to change that. So it's kind of like, take it to the bank if you get this. When you get any of the minor arcanas in there, especially when it's talking about something that's going to be a future event, that's not a set in stone. So there's still some wiggle room and, you know, a chance for things to happen differently. Now, as for the suits, those cards go from ace to 10, and then you get into what they call the court cards. Now, your ace card is usually a card of beginning. Those are all really positive, no matter which suit you have, and usually can indicate a very solid yes if you're asking a question about, you know, for confirmation or yes, no. So aces are that. The 5 card in each suit is kind of the midpoint. And 5s usually indicate a temporary situation. So whatever, if a 5 shows up as something that's going to happen, it's not going to be a long drawn out process. It's going to be, so if it's like for a difficulty coming up in the near future, a 5 says, yeah, you're going to have a tough time, but not for long. It will resolve. When you get up into 10, at the end of the suit, before you get into the court cards, 10 is the end of something. It's coming to an end. And you can do your own homework in your own time and learn more about the cards and their meanings. It is helpful, I have heard, but I'm not covering it in my introductory classes, to also have a basic understanding of the astrology, and that sometimes that can really help you be a more intuitive reader. Now, a couple of people told me I never even thought that I might have intuition. If you ever had that little gut feeling, male or female, that, oh, I shouldn't do this, you have intuition. I am firmly of the belief that everybody has intuition to some extent. And just like your muscles, if you're starting to work out, you might not have the stamina and strength at the start of something that you do after you've worked out for a while. You can grow that intuition. Now, it's going to grow to different amounts to everybody. If we go back to the athletic analogy, not everybody's going to make it to the Olympics. But we can all go from our starting point and move on and then see where we end up. So don't ever say never when it comes to your ability. When I shuffle the tarot cards, there's some important considerations to remember. First of all, you need to mix them up well. And after each question you ask the tarot deck, it's important to clear that energy, or you're going to be confounded that you seem to be getting the same type of cards for question after question after question. No matter how much you shuffle, you seem to be getting the same type. Well, the reason is you didn't clear the energy. There's several ways to do that. Now, I have 2 of these. They're selenite bars, and selenite is a fabulous substance. Selenite is a recharging stone that doesn't require recharging of its own. And I found it's absolutely fabulous for recharging my deck and moving on to a new question. If you don't have that, you can simply, as you're shuffling, make sure you tap each side. There, I did the bottom. Now I tapped this side. Next time I'll tap this and this. And just tell the deck, you're going to be talking to your deck, even if that talking is internal, that I'm clearing your energy to move on to a new question. And I appreciate you helping me with it. Okay? Now, don't feel stupid to be talking to your deck, because you're really talking to the universe. Okay? And I want to talk a little bit about that. I firmly believe that there are energies in our world that are both positive and negative. I mean, science tells us for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I want to make sure anytime I use the tarot cards that the only energy that I'm interacting with is very, very positive. There are a number of ways to do that. I will tell you what I do, and that is that I pray. And I pray that as I'm using the tarot cards, the only energy I want to interact with is my higher self. And I kind of view, my higher self as kind of like being above the clouds and able to see farther. Or maybe I'm in a submarine and that's the periscope, so it goes above and can see farther than I can see, have a better perspective. I have total faith that that higher self, which is me, has my back and is not ever going to do anything to harm or sabotage me. So I just ask that I only interact with my higher self or get insights from our loving creator. And that's it. So if you ask, do I channel? No, because of the way I set it up, all I'm interacting with is my higher self or our loving creator. And I also, while I'm doing that, I ask for protection for myself, for my home, even my internet access and technology, that it all be protected as I proceed. Now, We're getting ready to do some shuffling in a minute, but there's something else to know. Okay, so we've set our intention and asked to only have positive energies interact with us. And we've pictured possibly a white light around ourselves. I picture like a cheese dome around my condo even, and it goes above it, on both sides, and even underneath. And then I just ask that I use the cards in a very high frequency, high vibration way. And that because I want positive results and I want positive information. It is not good to use the tarot cards for some purposes. And one is to ask questions of people that have a right to privacy. So if someone's in the public eye, you'll notice when I do my videos, I often read about current events, corporations, or individuals that have already entered the public eye. That's okay to do because they've put themselves out there as a public figure. So it's okay to ask questions about them. If it's about your loved ones, be very careful not to. For example, if I was going to ask a question about my daughter, I would frame it as saying, what does the universe want me to know that my daughter would be comfortable sharing with me, or if she was here in person, that she would share with me herself, because my daughter lives across the country. I don't want to violate her privacy. And the more you use the cards respectfully and carefully, the more they'll work for you and work for you in a way that will be gratifying and wholesome. So we've set our intention. We know not to pry into other people's love lives or things like that. But you're curious about your own. You can attempt to do some tarot readings for yourself, but it's really difficult for people to, even expert tarot readers who have been reading for decades, often have someone trusted that they have read for them. I have someone I use on occasion. I can attempt to read for myself, but I can't always get my ego out of the way enough to really get the message that the universe has to share for me. So don't be surprised if you find that you're able to ask questions about situations or other people, but when it comes to yourself, you're not getting clear answers. And that's because it's really difficult. Don't be surprised. It's hard to get your ego out of the way. So anyway, let's shuffle the cards. When we shuffle them, we want them to get mixed up really well. The decks I use are a little larger than regular playing cards, and I don't have large hands, so I have a little bit of trouble with the shuffling even today. And it's okay if you do too. You can do it casino style shuffling, whatever. I like to do it like this because I want to keep the cards right side up, and I'll explain why. My understanding is that originally tarot cards were meant to be read face side up, and the upright meaning has the most positive aspects and information. And if you do right side up reading, one really quick benefit of it is you don't have to worry about the reverse meaning. So that's half your homework on card meanings gone right there. And as you're shuffling, if you have a card and you'll see this as you do it, every once in a while, you're shuffling carefully and one card just flies out. Now, if it's a bunch of them, you've probably just messed up your shuffling and pick them up and don't worry about it. But if one flies out, it may be the universe wanting you to get to know that here's some information you need. This is an important card. I'm already answering you with this one that flew out. You may continue the shuffle and get your rest of your layout going, but remember that card because it's going to impact the reading, if not the reading, the answer itself. Okay? So while you could like put your cards face down and pick them up one at a time, I think you'd still have to go back and turn them right side up and then continue shuffling. So just find a shuffling that works for you. And in any video I do, we are going to be working with cards face side up. If one shows up for some reason, and it can happen, if one shows up in a reading and it's upside down, we're going to still figure that it is the positive meaning for that card, but the energy is a little stuck. It wants this to happen. It's just going to take a little bit to get it unstuck and going, okay? So again, you don't have to worry about what the reverse meaning is. If you get a reverse, just figure it's the upright meaning, but the energy is a little stuck. It may take a little longer to show up or make manifest and show up. Okay, so we're shuffling. And then we're going to cut. You can cut your deck more than one time. I go with 3 piles. It's how I was taught. It feels good to me. And so I usually go and I use my left hand for that. I shuffle with both. And then we're going to cut the deck with our left hand. The reason why is your left hand is more closely aligned with your intuition and subconscious. And so the subconscious is what's going to be communicating with your higher self, getting the insights from our loving creator and your higher self. So we're going to let the left hand do the cutting. By the way, speaking of the hands, make sure your hands are clean as you work with the cards. They're not cheap. And if you really want the cards to give you authentic replies, you need to keep your cards clean. If they start sticking to one another because, you had makeup on them or little food got on them or something, I'm sorry, but that deck is pretty much useless at that point. So in fact, since I do the tarot channel, I buy my decks 3 at a time so that if they start sticking, I can just get rid of them and go to a new deck, because I truly want the universe to communicate with me. And I don't want to just keep getting one card because it sticks to the others. And as you're shuffling, it tends up being the one that shows up over and over in a cut. Okay, so I'm going to switch the camera. Let's talk about the question. I'm going to ask a question. You need to ask the question before you finish your shuffling. Don't change the question midstream. And also tell the universe what layout you're going to use and what each card you're going to use is going to tell you. Now, before I took Tarot by Janine's classes, the one she had up before her channel went down, I was only comfortable doing one, maybe a 3-card draw. So tonight for this video, we're going to do a 3-card draw. And I'm going to ask the universe, and even though it's hard to ask questions for yourself, I'm going to go ahead and try it for tonight for this, because it's okay to try. Just don't be surprised, especially on complicated or life questions, if you don't need someone else to help you with it. So I'm going to just ask the universe what I need to know about the coming 3 days. And I'm going to tell the universe that my first card is my big answer. My second card is the clarifier. My third card is going to be my advice. So answer, clarify, advice. That's a 3-card draw, okay? And we'll talk in a minute about the different kinds of 3-card draws you can do, but I wanted you by the end of this, at least first video, if you've got a deck, to be able to shuffle it, to cut it accurately, and then do a 3-card draw. So again, our question is going to be, or my question is going to be, what does the universe want me to know about the next 3 days for myself? Simple question. I'm not changing it. And universe, it's going to be 3-card draw. Answer, clarifier, advice. Let me change the pin, and you can watch me finish the shuffle and we'll find out. Got my left hand doing the cutting here, going into 3 piles. Then I personally always take the middle pile. Okay, my first card is my answer, Queen of Swords. Now the clarifier for that is the World. And my advice card is the 5 of Cups. Okay, here's how I'm interpreting these 3 cards for myself. My answer for the next 3 days is the Queen of Swords, and the swords are about written and spoken words. Okay, and she is very fair. And then the clarifier is the World card. Now, reefs on cards indicate victory. So I'm seeing that the universe is really happy with the way I'm using the written and spoken word. So both for my channel and with this instructional video, I'm getting a thumbs up from the universe about what I'm doing. My advice is the 5 of Cups. Now remember, 5s are temporary situations. So what it's telling me, the 5 of Cups can talk about some disappointment. Okay, maybe an inability to move on emotionally, because cups are emotions from something. And I do know that there's times when I kind of dwell on personal situations in the past that are past. There's nothing new to be learned from them. And I have to just force myself into going, that has nothing to do with today. And today I want to be positive. You know, and I tell the universe, yeah, if there's something to learn from this and that's why I'm revisiting it mentally, then yeah, let's keep going. But if not, help me just set it aside and enjoy and love my life today. So that's how I'm interpreting this 3-card draw for myself. Okay, the universe is smiling on my written and spoken word efforts. They may actually have a go, you know, since this is the World card, it may spread far and wide. And that personally, I need to just make sure that I keep disappointments in perspective and know that if I have any, they're very temporary in nature. So that's it for the 3-card read. So we had an intention, we figured out our question, we asked for protection while we worked with the cards for ourselves and for where we're at. We let the universe know what our question was and how we were going to lay it out, what we wanted each card to tell us. Then the cards were shuffled into 3 piles with your left hand to get the most access to your intuition. And then we turned them over. Now, what you didn't see was that I did stop the camera for a minute, even just with a 3-card draw, and just waited to see what the cards wanted to say to me. And there's nothing wrong with that. Speaking of that, while I have you, just for our last thing, I get nothing from these. I wanted to show you a couple books. I bought many, many tarot books when I was trying to hone my skills enough to feel comfortable doing a channel. And most of them either ended up in the trash or donated. 2 of them didn't. So let me show you which ones that I used, okay? The first one is Tarot for Beginners. It was written by Lisa Chamberlain. I still use this, and you can see I've got my little tabs. I still use it without any kind of embarrassment. It's just a good reference for me. It's a reference tool now. It's not something I use page by page, but I use it for reference sometimes. Or I'll think I'll have a card that does come up upside down, and I haven't memorized those meanings. I'll go, well, what would that mean? You know, and then I come back and go, but I'm going to think of the positive one, just it's a little bit stuck. And while it's stuck, it may kind of be showing up this way. So this was one, it's still in print. It doesn't matter what edition you get. So Tarot for Beginners by Lisa Chamberlain. I got mine from Amazon. I think Barnes & Noble also has them. And it's paperback, it's not too expensive. Now, another one that I really like that I also got from Amazon that didn't go in the trash and it didn't go in a donation box was Guided Tarot by Stephanie Caponi. So either one of those or both of those, I would say are good. I've heard other people, Tarot by Janine says that most books are worthless, and she's absolutely right. And I found that out for myself because that's the way I am. I want to decide things for myself. So I purchased a lot of them, and there's some that I didn't even feel comfortable donating further because people would waste their time with them. So that's a couple of references that you can have. And again, for your recharging, you can just shuffle and tap. You can burn some sage, or you can have some selenite on hand like I do. I find it's a fabulous recharger. Don't forget, you have to recharge your deck, clear it out its energy for every question. Okay? All right, well, that's it for session 1 of Introductory Tarot, or Tarot 101. And I hope you enjoyed it and you got some value from it. And we'll continue the next one. We'll talk about the Kachina knife spread and maybe a couple of other spreads and keep going. Thank you. Good luck. Good night.